right, so right now we're going to be working in Photoshop. So when you first get your laptops, you will have a numbered laptop. Please make sure that you unplug that laptop before you take it out and that you plug it in when you return it. It has to be done. Everyone has a specific number, which means if you don't do it, I know it was you. And the people before and after you are depending on you to make sure that it's done so they have a computer to use, okay? So right here at the bottom of your screen, you can press that little window. And the very first thing you do after that is just start typing the word photo. And you're going to see an icon for Adobe Photoshop come up. That one right there, you can right click on and you can pin it to your taskbar. Mine is already pinned there. So it appears on the bottom of your screen. Makes it a lot easier for future use. Okay? So go ahead again, right click on that, and then you're going to pin it to the taskbar. Mine says unpin because it's already there. That's how you open up Photoshop. It'll take a minute for it to load on your screen. Be patient with it. Try not to have too much open in the background. If you look at mine, oh my gosh, I have so much open in the background. Mine will get sluggish. I had like 3 different other classes other than this that I'm teaching that I have things open for. So we have to try to be patient with it. Okay? So the user interface. Yours should look like this. If it doesn't, and I'll remind you of this, the very first thing that you need to do is go up to Window, Workspace, and then reset your essentials. So that way your screen looks the same as mine. You don't want to do any of these other ones because then it brings up a bunch of different menus that you may not find very helpful. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to reset the essentials. Everything is where it should be right now as per what's in mine. Okay? So up at the top, I have a bunch of menus that I can go to. Very familiar. A lot of other programs use that. On the left-hand side, I have a bunch of tools. On the right-hand side, I have a bunch of task panes and windows of things that I can do, okay? So the very first thing I'm going to show you is the File menu, because that's really what you're going to look at as you guys are starting to pick out what it is you need to do. So in this case, I will use one of 3 things on a very regular basis here. Well, actually more, but one of 3 things when I first get started. I can open a document. I could create a new blank document. Now realize, as a photographer, you often will not create a new blank document. You're often going to open a photograph, okay? Or I have this one, which is one of the best things to use. A lot of people don't realize it's there. This is Open Recent. So anything that you have opened up should appear right here as the most recent. So the last thing I opened up was this file. And the longest ago, 19 or 20 files ago, was one eagle. Okay? So it tells me everything that I've been working on, but it's only my profile. So if you log on here, you're not going to see the stuff that I opened up. You'll only see what you opened up. Okay? And it will only work on your same computer. So if you have to grab a new computer, it will not work. So that's really important. But otherwise, on a daily basis, you would say open if you're going to open up a brand new picture. So in this case, you do need to download whatever picture you're editing from Google Classroom or your Google Drive. I will give you a couple of issues with that maybe a little bit later. We are having some problems, especially if you're an iPhone user. The new file type is not very happy in downloading and opening up in Photoshop, so we're going to have to do some workarounds with that. But in this case, I'm going to go into my pictures. You're going to save to your H drive. And your H drive is the one that has your ID number in there, so it's really important that you do look for that. That's your network ID. Do not save it here to your pictures, to your music, to your downloads, to anything like your desktop. It'll just bog down your computer, so don't do that to yourself. You're going to go to your H drive. Now again, I say don't do it, but I do it only because I have a different save type than you have, okay? If I go in my pictures, I'm going to go into my pictures. I'm going to change my size of icon and what kind of view that I have. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put it on large icon. So now I can actually see the picture. I can see what I'm taking and selecting files for, okay? I'm going to open up whatever that image is, and you should see it appear here. If you don't, we do need to work with that. We're going to figure out, and I'll give you some workarounds that'll kind of help you through, okay? So in this case, we see right over here, this is super important. It's my layers. If that is missing, Window, Layers, or F7. You just want to make sure you can see this. Because the very first thing you should do, it's like if I punched you in the stomach, the very first thing you're going to do before you punch me back, of course, is like, oh, you're gonna really feel it. You're gonna cringe. So your gut reaction to this, when I first open a document, is to copy it. And I press Control J, or I right click, and I can duplicate that layer. I want a copy. It's like a makeover. I want to see your before picture and I want to see your after picture. Because your after picture can look fantastic, but if I don't know what you looked like before, I don't know how great that makeover was. I don't know if you actually had to work at it, or if it was just like, wow, you were amazing to begin with and you still look amazing. You didn't really change it all. I want to see what happened. And without this before picture in my background, I can't see it. Okay? I am going to open a recent document because I want to show you how Photoshop works. Photoshop works in what are called layers. Just like a sandwich is in layer. What's on the bottom of a sandwich? You start with bread. My bread is my background layer. And in this case, I built in some mayo. My mayo is this cool galaxy pattern. And above that, let me turn that off and let me turn that off. There's this little eyeball on the outside. All of your layers have a little visibility, which means you can turn them off or on, but you're not deleting them. You're just kind of putting them aside for a little while, which is awesome in this case. So you see this gray and white checkerboard. Anytime you see that, that is synonymous or the same as a transparent area. So anything that's checkerboard will end up the color of whatever you're printing it on. So in this case, if I print it on white paper, it's going to turn out white. If I print it on pink paper, this is going to be transparent. There's no color there. It's going to come out pink. So again, it's really important that you know, whenever in Photoshop you see these checkerboards, it is meaning that it's transparent or see-through. So this is like me putting a piece of Swiss cheese on top of a piece of lettuce. If I put that Swiss cheese with holes in it on the lettuce, these are the holes. I can actually see the lettuce through it. Okay? So that's really, really important. So again, we build up layers, and the thing at the top is the closest to the top bread. So let's say this right here is my top bread. That'll be the most visible. And if I move something that's underneath it, like this layer, if I go and I move it, you'll see that it goes, oops, sorry, I moved the wrong one. Where are we at? There we are. If I move this one, you'll see that it goes under. I warned you it would get laggy. It goes under, okay? So that's really the workings of Photoshop and working with layers. The closest thing to the bottom is the bread. Closest thing to the top is the top bread. So now that we're done with that, we're going to go ahead and I'm just going to exit out. Oh, wrong one. I'm going to exit out. You can see I have two tabs open. I'm going to get rid of this one. I don't need it anymore, and I'm not saving it because I don't want to save that. Okay? Now let's get back to this guy. You can see right here, I can have that layer active. So the one that's lighter is active. It's ready to go. And I'm going to start working on adjusting it. I usually like to do two different things to this. And it both revolves around this function right here called image. There are other things over here called adjustment layers. We are not working with adjustment layers right now, and I'll explain in the future why not, just not right now. We are doing it directly to the picture. That's why we made a copy of it. So I'm going to go ahead, image and adjustments, and I'm going to use one of two things. I'm going to use first levels. My second is going to be hue and saturation, and then I might actually even go back to levels if needed. Okay? So if I go to levels, I've got this really interesting looking mountain range here. Please know you can grab it by the light colored bar on the top and you can move it just out of your way so you can see your image. This is called your histogram. It is the distribution of light values, medium values, and dark values inside of that photograph. So you can see mine is very interesting. Last picture I opened up, it was a big mountain range with a peak in the middle, but there are a lot of pops here and there. So it's very interesting how this is distributed. First thing that you can do is you could always go to Old Faithful right here, and that is auto. You press auto, you're going to give it a minute, you'll see my mountain range shifted. Watch, screen, before, after, before, after. You might say, no, I don't like it. It depends on the image. Sometimes Photoshop misreads what your intentions are and thinks it knows, but it doesn't. You'll see I have a before and an after very easily, but I'm not doing anything on my screen. That is edit and undo. It's your Control Z function. Very first shortcut that you need to memorize, Control Z. So very important. So you do want to make sure that you memorize that, because I can press Control Z to undo. Let's say I don't like it. I press Control Z and I start it again. But now I'm going to go manually. So you're going to go ahead and you're going to move these. So my light one is responsible for brightness. My medium tone is responsible for all those like kind of the middle grays. And this dark one is responsible for my shadows. And again, if you move anything obviously too far, you're going to see it has a huge impact, most of the time to the negative. So obviously in this case, that would be a really terrible image. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull this back. It's lagging, sorry guys. I'm actually going to cancel. I'm going to open that up again. Image adjustment levels. If you don't like it and you went too far, cancel out and start it over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up a little bit of my dark value because I really like seeing that shadow contrast in there. I'm going to move the gray slider, and let's say that's the right direction. Maybe it's not, but again, you want to move where it belongs. And then I'm going to pull up my brightness a little bit. So let's say I like deepening that water. I think it gives a nice darkness. And then I can still have a nice brightness in the flowers and the lily pad, and I can say okay. Second thing, image adjustments, hue saturation. Really important there. You're going to use these two. Do not use lightness. I never use that. The only place I work with my lightness and darkness is as I go into my levels. You can slightly saturate, which means I give a little bit more color to it. You can also desaturate like that, which means I'm going to make it a very soft color. Or I can completely pull that down and make it a black and white. In that case, I would go ahead and I would go back to adjustments for my levels, and I would work with that a little bit more to make sure that I pulled all the values that I need for a black and white now instead of a full color. You see how different that looks when I get to a black and white, okay? But again, we're going for color right now, so I want to make sure that we are at a good place for that. I'm going to undo that. And at this stage in time, you can double click. You can call that one edit. And then you can go ahead and save it. And I want to explain how you save it. It is really important that you go File, Save As. A lot of you are downloading these images. At least today you're downloading. You do not want to rely on the download folder to save. It becomes very corrupt and it's often wiped clean by tech because it bogs down your computer. So you're going to scroll down. You're going to find your ID number in your H drive. Create a new folder called Digital Photo. Give it a good name. And then go ahead and save it. You'll notice it's got a .psd at the end. Try to leave that. Try not to remove that. Also, don't add any extra periods in the name. It changes the file type, and it confuses the computer where it becomes unreadable. Okay? Hit save, and that is what you're going to upload at times. Other times, I'm going to say, please give me a screenshot. In this case, my screenshot is my Windows key, and I'll explain that as you guys get into those computers. I'll show it to you. I would screenshot my work for the day, showing my layers. By the way, I can make my layers a little bit bigger with larger thumbnails or smaller ones, whatever works best for you. Okay? So right there, I would save that to my H drive and screenshot it to upload to Google Classroom, and that is what you are going to do today.